All right, guys, we're going back 4 years in this video. It's the last one. 5 cover price videos in a row to cover the entire week. In this one, 4 years back. All right, guys, let's get into this. We're going back 4 years on this Friday. Before we get into it, quickly check out the description down below. All types of discount codes left and right, including a cover price discount code. Now, covrprice.com. You can use it, the free part of it, but trust me when I say you do want to subscribe. It's an unbelievable tool for any comic collector. It does watch the current market too. With that, we're just going to jump right into it, guys. Let's get to number 10. This is Venom number 3, third print. Love this book. Null was one of the hottest characters on the market in 2020, and this third printing variant was the king of the crop. Raw copies sold in droves for $130. Graded copies reached $325 for 9.8s. 4 years has passed, and Null has taken a backseat since the ending of his symbiote-centered storyline. While he isn't as hot as he was in 2020, raw copies of this variant are still $200, and graded copies are right at the same price that they were back in May of 2020. Now, the all-time high was $900 in August of 2020. These current prices make the rare third printing variant a boom 4 years later. I love this cover. I love this character. I'm excited to see what someone will do with him because he's not gone, right? He's got to come back. The god of symbiotes. Let's go. Let's get to number 9. This is Annihilation Conquest Wraith number 1. Null was a big deal in 2020. And the character's co-creator, Donny Cates, was driving the hype bus. Cates mentioned his possible plans for the character Wraith and his Null connections, and his first appearance exploded on the aftermarket. Raw copies sold for $100. 9/8s were reaching $250. 4 years later, collectors have moved on fully from Wraith. The character never reached the hype levels, and prices have since plummeted. Raw copies are now around 15. Graded 9/8s are about $60. Huge drop in prices makes this book a bust 4 years later. This was I think the reason this book exploded was I don't think there was a ton of them out there. Kind of an obscure character. And Donny Cates at the time, man, he was the hottest thing going. So anything he talked about or touched on exploded. Let's get to number 8. This is Incredible Hulk 340. May of 2020 was an incredible time in collectibles as each week saw new all-time highs for classic covers and key issues. This classic and beloved Todd McFarlane cover reached new highs at the time of $120 raw, $436 for CGC 9.8. As of May 2024, raw copies of this book have now reached $200. Graded 9/8s are $1,100. 4 years later, this book is a huge boom for those collectors who bought in. You're kind of just about COVID time here. So the boom 4 years ago didn't quite happen. That's why a lot of these are looking like booms or pushes, minor busts besides super hype books. This is a great cover. One of my favorite McFarlane covers. I actually love seeing this book signed when Todd signs across the claws. Todd on one claw, McFarlane on the other. I don't know. It's just, I like it. All right, let's go to number 7. This is X-Men Annual number 14. The classic first cameo versus first full appearance argument usually leads with someone mentioning this book. This book marks the first Gambit, and in May of 2020, it definitely trended upwards. Raw copies had reached $25, and graded copies sold for $256. Now, that was a 9/8. Fast forward 4 years, and raw copies have continued to grow, albeit slowly, and have settled to around $35. Graded 9/8 copies are in the $200 range now, a little less than where they were 2020. This book is a push, and there are many reasons to believe prices will only increase and even more in the future. Gambit is experiencing another resurgence in popularity and has yet to be given a proper live-action adaptation. Well, not if that... not if that happens, expect another boom in price. There are speculation that he will appear in Deadpool. I can't talk about X-Men 97 and credit scenes, but that was a tremendous Gambit moment in like episode 4. I think it was episode 4. Just unbelievable. X-Men 97 was amazing. Gambit, my generation loves Wolverine and Gambit. Some like Cyclops, but that's the big three. right there. I mean, how do you not love Gambit? Let's get to number 6. This is Ultimate Fallout number 4. Null and Gambit were not the only characters seeing significant interest from collectors in 2020. Miles Morales' books were experiencing huge prices, and his first appearance was front and center. This book was seeing regular sale prices of $150 for raw copies, $550 for 9.8s. 4 years have passed, and the Miles Morales hype hasn't died down much. While his prices are significantly lower than all-time highs, they are more than double what they were in May of 2020. Raw copies are now $400. A graded CGC 9.8 copy will cost you $1,200. This book is an easy boom 4 years later. This book has become a modern grail for most collectors, and no one thinks this is the full potential for this book or character. It will be fun to see what Ultimate Fallout 4 does when Miles makes his MCU proper debut one day. I definitely see Marvel, MCU, Disney shifting towards a Miles Morales arc. I don't think Tom Holland is going to be there for forever. I think they're going to go into Miles. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but I think it's going to happen. Let's get to number 5. This is Sweet Tooth number 1. The recent announcement of a Netflix series sent fans and collectors scrambling to pick up the first issue of Sweet Tooth in 2020. Raw copy prices were $40 each. 9/8s were selling for $135. 4 years later, there is anticipation for the premiere of the 3rd season of the series, as the first 2 seasons of Sweet Tooth were met with praise from fans and critics alike. Aftermarket prices are slightly down for raw copies, $28 versus $40, yet slightly higher for 9/8s, $135 versus $168. The current prices make this debut issue a push 4 years later. This is, I have yet to, I never watched this or read it. It's kind of like on my list of things to do, but it's funny to see the market holding on to something, which tells me not only is the book great, I think it's Jeff Lemire. I'm pretty sure it's Jeff Lemire wrote this. I'm almost positive. Not only is the story like loved by fans, but to be able to move it to the big screen, the small screen, and done well, I mean, that's like a killer right there. That's a huge hit. Let's get to number 4. This is Point One, number 1, the Nick Bradshaw. Nova has been one of the most on-again, off-again rumor favorites among Marvel characters. While it seems inevitable that the character sees live action, it has yet to materialize. Now, rumors were swirling in May of 2020 of Sam Alexander being the favorite of the 2 Novas, the other being his pops, Richard Rider, to get the nod, and collectors were definitely interested in raw copies of his first appearance, and they were selling for $35. 9/8s were selling for $120. We are now in 2023, and Nova rumors still persist. Prices of his first appearance have dropped. We're in 2024. What are we talking about here? Prices of his first appearance have dropped slightly, as raw copies can be bought now for $30. 9/8s will run you $80. This minor price drop, while making it a bust 4 years later, does give fans a great time to snag a copy for cheap in case the MCU decides to do something with Sam later on. Me, I'm a Richard Rider guy, but I know people love Sam Alexander. Take your pick. It seems affordable right now and worth a stab. Let's get to number 3. This is Captain America 307. Another book that was selling based on rumors in May of 2020 was Captain America 307. This book was the first appearance of Madcap, who was rumored to be showing up in Deadpool 3. These wild rumors sent prices soaring to the tune of $45 for raw copies. 4 years have passed, and there is little reason to think these rumors hold much truth at all, and collectors appear to feel the same. Raw prices have dropped to $13, and while there were no graded sales in May of 2020, there was a sale of $190 in December of 2020. Graded prices in May of 2024 are $200. This drop in raw prices makes this book a bust 4 years later. If by some chance Madcap does pop up in the upcoming Deadpool film, this bust could quickly see some significant interest again, albeit it will be very short-lived, and I think it will be kind of mild. We're going to get to number 2, but before we do, I want to remind you again, that Covrprice discount code, I get nothing out of it. It is specifically for you guys. Check it out. Use it. Check out Covrprice.com, and let's get to number 2. This is Hulk Future Imperfect number 1. In May of 2020, there was recent news of longtime Marvel writer Peter David returning to write Hulk, specifically the Maestro character featured in his fan favorite storyline, Future Imperfect. This exciting news sent prices rising in the aftermarket as raw copies sold for $20, 9/8 were selling for $95. Here we are in May of 2024, really June, and raw copies have remained in the $18 range. Graded copies are only $5 less than May 2020 averages, making this book a push. This storyline and character are both beloved by fans, and this is certainly a reason to be optimistic about the book's future prospects moving forward. I think the price is what it is. I can't see it dropping much, and unless you get a Maestro, whatever, in the MCU, which is kind of possible, then I would see these books go bigger. But right now, seems about right, seems about stable. Let's get to our last one. Here is our number 1. This is Youngblood number 2, the pink logo variant. The first appearance of Prophet was experiencing all-time highs in May of 2020 after it was announced that Rob Liefeld's Prophet was being adapted into a feature film. The book was a Covrprice's top 10 for its second consecutive week, as copies were regularly selling for $10 for raw copies, and 9/8 were going for about $166. In the last 4 years, the addition of Jake Gyllenhaal to the lead role, Dan Hargrave directing, and steady script updates constantly gave aftermarket bumps to this 90s favorite. However, in May of 2024, recent news of Gyllenhaal exiting the role has brought prices down, despite word that the film is still moving forward. Prices have fallen to $5 for raw, and fans and collectors can purchase a 9.8 copy for under $55, the lowest in 9 years. Now, the green version tends to sell for a tad more at $75. This price drop across the board makes this book an easy bust 4 years later. However, if you're a Youngblood fan, a Prophet fan, a 90s Image collector, or believe in the film's continued development, then you're at a pretty decent price point to procure a copy, guys. It's pretty low. I can't see this book going any lower. Let's wrap this thing up here really quick here. Prior to looking into these books' current prices, I assumed most of this list would be filled with busts. 2020 was a time of all-time high collectible prices, so it was reasonable to assume nearly every book would be less today than 4 years ago. It was quite a pleasant surprise to see 6 of the 10 books be either a push or boom this week. One bust was also very minor. While the market may not be on fire to the point that it was in May of 2020, it's not near as doom and gloom as many would have you believe. Classic covers by legendary artists and first appearance books of characters with strong fan bases have a good track record of being wise investments. These type of books are built for longevity, whereas on the flip side, books that are fueled by unsubstantiated and far-fetched rumors are much more volatile. Guys, make sure you come back next time. We're going back to 2019. That's right. I think we're going back 5 years. Thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, keep it comics.